So this is the forecast for the full moon in Capricorn. It's going to happen around 11 p.m. Eastern Time on August 1st, which is Wednesday. That's like 8 p.m. Pacific Time here in the United States. So you just adjust that for your local time. But so this is the moment of the full moon. You see the moon like 15:56 of Capricorn, Sun 16:11. It's about 10 minutes from actual Purnima, from the actual moment when Sun and Moon join. So, of course, this is the full moon in the Cancer cycle. So, the Sun and Moon came together in Cancer a couple weeks ago, which initiated that cycle of Sun and Moon together. Then the Moon went around and went around, and now it's here. So the full moon is that balancing point, that opposition point. And so the balancing point and the point of equilibrium between, or in the Cancer cycle is Capricorn. So, in some ways, especially like in modern parlance, you might consider the opposite part to be like the unintegrated part. Especially like in Jungian work, they always have that shadow. You have to integrate the shadow. Integrating the shadow is the only way to really be whole. And this is a very good metaphor for what the full moon is. It's really the shadow of the sun cycle. Because the sun is what we're trying to illuminate. We're trying to illuminate that lesson wherever the sun goes. And the moon is, I always say the opposition point, but it's the point of contrast, which really contains the same seed principle as the sun cycle, but like the opposite. It's the opposite. So it's very reasonable to say that it's like the shadow. So integrating that shadow is really a lot of what we learn when we look at the sun and moon opposition on the full moon. I try to avoid things like that, integrating the shadow stuff, because frankly I think it's so overdone and not really done very correctly. People are like, the shadows, the shadow issues and all, and it's just kind of one of these new age modern things that people throw out there but they don't really understand. But this is really a way to get it, because it's like that opposite. This is why the full moons have a lot to do with relationships, because there's that self and other. There's that opposition, that reflection coming back to us. So the reflection, just in general, the stereotype or the archetype of the reflection that comes back when you have the sun in Cancer and the moon in Capricorn, is that realm of practicality, rationality, stability, structure, materiality, willingness to let go of things and to be practical about things that are more important than just our emotions and how we feel in the moment, which is Cancer. We're in the Cancer cycle, which is about how I feel in the moment, and the things that externally I'm hoping will give me this feeling of connection, community, family. Those are all things that give us a feeling of connection and flow. But those things are really only as strong and powerful in our life as we're able to be practical and have some detachment and have the long-term picture in mind, to be able to see things in a larger context than just how we feel in the moment. Because if that's the case, then we're just a reactive emotional creature. And this gives rise to a lot of negative stereotypes, a lot of negative mother stereotypes, because really the sign of Cancer is really the sign of the mother, which is selfless love, wanting to just give love and be a source of nourishment and nurturing. And, but yet there is certainly the whole stereotype of the overbearing mother that can't let go of the child because of what they get from the child rather than what they give to the child. And so, and the seed principle of that is the same sign of Cancer, that sign of wanting to give selfless love. But when we look to something outside of ourselves to find that source of love in our heart, then then it creates a problem. The activity of giving selfless love is simply to alert us and to connect us to the source of selfless love in us. So this is why people who have planets in Cancer, it's good for them to have something that they can love selflessly, because then it's going to keep them connected to that source of selfless love in their heart. But the source is in our heart, and not just for Cancer, for everyone, because it comes from the moon. And the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So each of the signs are an archetype of the planet that rules it. It's an incarnation of the planet that rules it. For the moon and sun, there's no duality. They're an archetype of masculine or feminine energy, and the moon is the archetype of feminine energy, which is to flow and to receive, to just be receptive. And so the quality of being receptive is what allows us to receive everything without protecting ourselves in our own self-interest, you would say. This is what the mother archetype is, that it's not about me and my feelings and my safety and my protection. It's about you. It's about flowing with selfless love that doesn't have a condition. That conditional love is related to Libra and related to Venus. And we learn that in romantic relationships where we test our confidence and capacity to compromise and, all that stuff. But the Cancer principle is selfless love that's flowing. And really, it's the part of us that's interfacing with each moment and wanting to try to connect that moment with the divine flow that's non-embodied, that non-embodied self, which is the sun. So our experiences through the ascendant are joined to the universal cosmic experiences of the sun through the agency of the heart, through the agency of the moon. And that's what the sign of Cancer is. It's where we feel that. So that's been the big lesson for the last couple weeks. To integrate that fully, we need that detachment, that realism, that practicality, that structure, that willingness to let go, the willingness to suffer, the willingness to endure hardship of Capricorn, willingness to endure hardship ourselves in order to let the other being flourish, for instance. The willingness of the mother to let go of their attachment to the child, for instance. This is Saturn, Capricorn stuff. The willingness of us to let go of our attachment to things that we were hoping were going to make us feel good. This, of course, can be like romantic relationships, but all relationships with people and even with family. How much energy we put into family, trying to make sure the family loves us and the family dynamic is right and all. Even having some detachment from that and seeing the family as part of our growth path. And, not giving up on them, but also not defining ourselves necessarily through such clannish and, comforting self-image. The willingness to step into a more practical and realistic image, which is Saturn-ruled Capricorn, which looks at things in the eternal sense. It says it's not just about this lifetime, these emotional entanglements, these emotional connections. It's about the enormity of time unfolding and my connection to truth and my need to be able to thrive in solitude regardless of who's there and who's affirming my connection. That's what Capricorn is about. It's where we can thrive in solitude. It's a big Capricorn lesson. So the nakshatra is Shravana. The moon is in its own nakshatra. So it's a really good time to not only feel that detachment, but to also be able to stabilize the heart, stabilize our emotions. Shravana is ruled by the moon. So the moon in Capricorn is actually really one of the better signs for it on some level. It's not necessarily so easy or feels so comforting because it's ruled by Saturn. But especially in Shravana Nakshatra, there's a lot of peace that's possible. So a deep level of peace and security and reckoning with the truth is possible. And it's really a good time and a good day, that's the full moon day, for meditation, spiritual practice for sure. Spiritual sadhana and meditation is really good on this day. It'll be Wednesday, but the full moon really comes together. Sun and moon really come together. It's almost Thursday. early morning Thursday, but it's going to be the Wednesday is the Purnima, the day that the moon is becoming full. So Shravana Nakshatra, Shravana literally means hearing. It's ruled by Lord Vishnu. And the energy or the activity of Shravana really has to do with things like chanting, singing, and those kinds of spiritual practices that have to do with vocalizing and, chanting mantras and things like that are really important when the moon is in Shravana. And so that could be some very important sadhana. The other thing that's really important is we have a Jupiter aspect on the moon. You see this Jupiter is aspecting the moon in Capricorn. Jupiter is also aspecting Mars and Saturn. Mars is separating from it, and Saturn are both separating from that aspect, but especially this Jupiter is really an aspect to the moon, which confers a great blessing on this full moon and these spiritual practices and whatnot. That's quite a blessing. And anytime we have these Jupiter aspects on the moon or something that's important on that day, you know that God's grace, Guru's grace, is there with you. So your spiritual practices can really take root on Wednesday and into Thursday to help you balance and get more practical about your emotional stresses, the emotional stresses and longings and confusion of the last couple of weeks. Because we've had the sun went into Cancer, we had that new moon, and then Mercury went retrograde, very close to it. You can go back and look at the new moon forecast that I did and compare how your life has been since then. So that's a good thing to do, to stay in touch with these cycles. So I'm going to do the member forecast now. The members get me talking about their sign as well, not just the general signs, but each of the 12 signs of the zodiac will experience this differently. And of course, the members get this every month, a couple forecasts a month, not to mention the 4 forecasts per week. So if you want to listen to your sign's forecast now, you can do that as well by just joining for 1 penny for a 2-week trial. And then at the end of the 2 weeks, if you don't cancel, you'll be charged the regular membership trial, the regular membership fee. But you can cancel anytime within that 2 weeks and not be charged and still get all the great forecasts. So check that out.